What is going on, guys? Sonic and the Bean Show here, and today we are back with another top 10 video for you guys to round out 2022. This time we are doing the 4-inch figures, which was a really good year for this lineup, to be honest. I think there were a lot more figures released this year compared to last year, I want to say. Now, I know that Silver and Omega had an early release in certain areas. Like, I think in some states they came out around Christmas or New Year's Eve, but I'm just going to include them here anyway because I know they weren't available for a lot of people until January of this year, so we're just gonna roll with that in this video. But let's go ahead and start my countdown here. This is the top 10 best Sonic action figures of 2022. Alright guys, coming into number 10 is going to be Silver the Hedgehog. Like the figure, you know, I think it's a pretty solid figure of Silver. There's just some minor setbacks of the figure that made it this low on the list. Like, I don't think the head sculpt is too bad. It's kind of a bland expression really, and there's not a lot of movement around the head either. But I still enjoyed myself with the review and displaying him with other characters, so I put Silver in the number 10 spot. Now, it's a possibility that he could rank higher on the list next year since Super Silver is going to be in the next wave, so you know, we'll see how much of a difference that figure is compared to this one. But for now, I have Silver at number 10. Coming into the number 9 spot, we have Dr. Eggman from the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. Great looking figure, of course. Love the double jointed elbows and knees. I think the head sculpt is really good. I still find it weird how they didn't give him wrist articulation because they usually include that with almost all of their figures, along with ankle articulation as well, which is another thing that's not included here. But the accuracy of this figure is spectacular. It definitely captures how he looked in the movie. So I'm putting Jim Carrey at the number 9 spot. Now, coming into number 8, this one was jumping back and forth with number 7 on my list, but I went with Big the Cat right here. I love this figure a lot. I like messing around with him with the other Froggy and fishing pole toys that I have. This is actually a pretty good figure, but I think the lack of accessory and the stiff joints due to the body mold of the figure is what hit the coffin for him. I also think he just wasn't a popular release either because, believe it or not, he's actually warming the pegs here already in my area. Like, as soon as this wave hit, the only figures that's been moving the most are Chaos and Knuckles, which is bizarre. And what's also crazy is that I've seen this big figure on Amazon already and he was on sale, so yeah, it's pretty crazy to see that. But I love this big figure and I'm very excited to see some more figures of him in the near future. Coming into number 7 is going to be Rouge the Bat, one of the most anticipated Sonic figures in this line. Love the amount of articulation she has. I like the heart bomb accessory she comes with along with the movable wings. I still think her open hand is too big, or maybe the fingers are too long. I know they had to make it to where she has to hold the heart bomb, but I even thought that accessory was big as well. But I still thought the figure was great. I thought the entire wave was phenomenal, to be honest. Like, wave 8 was just such an amazing wave. It's definitely one of my favorite lines without a doubt, but I'm putting Rouge the Bat at number 7. Coming into my number 6 spot is going to be the Party Sonic figure from the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. A really slept on figure and a figure that I love posing around and displaying with a lot of other figures. This is one of those figures that caught me by surprise, something that I never thought would be made. I mean, the whole movie pack was just outstanding, but this one in particular just stood out for me. I love the attire a lot. I like the really nice shades on him. I like the tie on his head, the gold chain around him. Just a really cool figure to have. Love a lot of things about it. So Party Sonic comes in at number 6 here in the ranking. Coming in at number 5 is the Egg Robo figure. This figure was a lot of fun to pose around with. I know that the paint detail isn't accurate with this figure, but I love messing around with this figure and doing cool poses with the gun accessory. I've seen people do some crazy customs of this figure or even have like a whole army of Egg Robo figures, which is really cool. And I love when Jakks make the Eggman robots because they always seem to be one of the best figures to articulate compared to the others, which is why this Egg Robo is in my top 5 because it's very fun to articulate, and I'm glad to add this guy to the collection. Now, there are tons of characters from different movies that will have a very accurate look of them in action figure form, and this is one of them. We have the Knuckles figure from the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. Out of all the characters they made from this movie, this one has to be the most perfect one from top to bottom. Probably my most favorite Knuckles figure to date. I really love this figure a lot. The head sculpt is really good. I love the angry expression he has. The attention to detail on his shoes are pretty clean. Love the sculpt and the formula they went with on this figure. My biggest gripe though is how stiff the joints are, especially the shoulders and legs. If they weren't so stiff, and if you were able to move the head like the Tommy or Jax classic Knuckles figure, this figure could have been at my top 3 without a doubt, but it does fall short on that compared to the others, which is why it is at the number 4 spot. But again, a great looking figure. Definitely recommend getting it, especially if you're a huge Knuckles fan or a fan of the movie. Alright man, coming in at number 3, now this figure, I knew as soon as it was revealed, I knew the articulation was going to be smooth as butter, and boy was I right. This figure is very fun to pose around with. Even though I'm disappointed with some missing details on the figure, I have to admit this figure feels really good in the hand. If an action figure looks very close to how they should look and is very articulated, it's going to be high on the list, which is why Chaos made it to the top 3 spot. Such a fun figure to have. I know a lot of people might put this in their number 1 spot, but for me it didn't hit the nail like the other figures I have in front of it, but this figure is incredible nonetheless, so I have Chaos in the top 3 right here. Coming in at number 2 is a great figure of a guy that I'm not even the biggest fan of, but when a figure is so good that it captures the person perfectly, very fun and addictive to pose around with, really nice sculpt and smooth articulation on top of that, is going to be ranked high here. This Vector figure is fantastic, man. Ever since this figure came out, I could not stop playing around with this figure. It's such a fun figure to pose around with. This figure is so good that I don't even care what accessory he came with at this point, and the mouth tooling that they did for the articulation is definitely the highlight of this figure. This is just a really nice Vector. I had a lot of fun when I first reviewed him. I think my only gripe is the green line they have inside his mouth. I don't know why that wasn't painted red to match the inside, but Vector definitely had to be ranked high, man. It's such a good figure, so Vector came in at number 2 on the list. And at my number 1 spot is E123 Omega. This figure is absolutely incredible. I have so much fun posing this figure around and just having fun with him. This is still to this day my favorite Jakks Pacific Sonic figure, and again, another Sonic character that I'm not even the biggest fan of nor care too much about, but this figure still holds the title for me. Now of course it's not perfect, you know, it's missing some slight paint details and the lack of head articulation. The head articulation is still something I'm trying to figure out on why that wasn't added here. Like, it looks like it has head articulation, but it doesn't, which is so weird. I've seen some people do some fix up on this guy, like they added the head articulation somehow. I've seen someone replace his hand as a machine gun. There was one where someone gave Omega like a metallic paint job with some dry brush and even made his eyes light up red somehow. Lots of great stuff on this figure, which actually makes me want a new re-release of this figure, but in the Jakks Gold line. But like I said, this figure is so good and I had a lot of fun reviewing him this year as well. And if this figure gets a re-release in another wave and I see him at retail, then I'm definitely buying it again because it's a figure that I absolutely adore a lot. However, that wraps up my top 10 list of Sonic action figures of 2022. So thank you all so much for watching. I'd love to know your top 10 or top 5 in the comment section below. But until then, take care, my friends.